There really are two selves within each and every one of us. Muktananda called the ego, the part of us that has edge got out, ego, edge got out, the false self. And the false self is this part of us that is not authentic. It is the ego. This false self is the part of us that is always trying to win, trying to own things, trying to prove itself. We send our kids off to school and we tell them, be ahead of everybody else, win, no matter what, and so on. And they have a tendency to believe that who they are these bodies, even though the body they're in is going to change and you'll never be able to find it again. And then there's within each and every one of us a higher self. And this higher self is really the soul, it's really the spirit, it's really God. But these two selves are sort of constantly they're not at war so much with each other, but there's this battleground that we have within us. I'll give you an example of it in my own life. Somebody on the internet, a guy named Watkins, has put out a list, because there's lists for everything. The 100 most spiritually influential people alive. And they put out this list, 100 people. And they rank from number 1 to 100. And I'm on the list. Not only am I on the list, but I am, according to this list, and they've got all this criteria on how you get on this list, I am the 3rd most spiritually influential person alive. So the spiritual part of myself, my soul, the higher place within myself, says to me, this is not relevant. You're not any better than anybody else just because somebody has put you on a list. In fact, you shouldn't even know about that list. And perhaps the people who are most spiritually influential aren't even on that list and don't even want to be on that list because they don't care about those kind of rankings and comparisons and so on. But then there's the ego over here that says, what do you mean number 3? Well, what's going on with that? And who are these people who are more spiritually influential than you? And how are you going to take them down? It shouldn't make any difference. Who I am is the same as everyone else. We all come from the same place, and we all return back to the same place. But then the ego says, let's see, the 2 people ahead of me on this list, one of them is Eckhart Tolle, but he had Oprah, and he got on there every week, and that's not fair. And then there's the Dalai Lama, and I figure Eckhart and I maybe can get together and take the Dalai Lama out of his head. Or maybe I should align with the Dalai Lama, and anyway, the ego is doing this number on us. But there's also the part of us that is divine. And this is the place that I'm addressing here in this program. There's a quote from Joel Goldsmith. Joel wrote so many great books. A Parenthesis in Eternity was one of them. And this is what Joel said. He said, then there are those who reach a stage in which they realize the futility of this constant striving and struggling for the things that perish, things which after they are obtained prove to be shadows. It is at this stage that some persons turn from this seeking for things in the outer realm to a seeking for them from God. And that's who you tuned into today on this program. I have left this pursuing things and money and fame and winning and being better than others. It's taken me a while, but it has been a powerful journey. As a matter of fact, I had said to my ex-wife, I said, can you imagine? Did you ever in your wildest dreams, could you ever have imagined that you would be married to the 3rd most spiritually influential person alive? And she said, they didn't call me when they made that list. And she said, I don't want to upset you, dear, But you're not in my wildest dreams. All right. So moving to this higher place is really understanding that in the second chapter of Wishes Fulfilled, I call it the higher self. And it gets defined very specifically by this great Bulgarian teacher. His name was Omram Mikhail Ivanov. And he was teaching what's called the initiatic sciences. And I have had his teachings show up in my life in a very powerful way. I've studied his writing. I've listened to many of his recorded lectures that took place back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I brought a quote of his that I'd like to share with you. Our higher self is perfect, omniscient, and almighty, a fragment of God himself, a pure, transparent, luminous quintessence. I love that. I love great writing like that. And that within each and every one of us, there is a place inside of each and every one of us that is all-knowing, that is almighty, that is actually a fragment of God. He then went on to say, the Creator has planted within every creature a fragment of himself, a spark, a spirit of the same nature of himself. And thanks to this spirit, every creature can become a creator. And this means that instead of always waiting for their needs to be satisfied by some external source, human beings can absolutely work inwardly by means of their own thoughts, their own will, and their own spirit to obtain nourishing, healing elements that they need. This is why he said to all of us, the teaching I bring to you is of the Spirit, of the Creator, and not of matter. A spark that is in each and every one of us. And this spark, I want you to be able to recognize, because that spark, I'd like to see you have it grow from just a tiny little spark, which means you can hardly see it, to a fragment, to a piece, to a larger chunk, if you will, to a section, so that this spark within you that you see up here is growing and growing and growing until it absolutely becomes even more than you imagined. T.S. Eliot, the great American poet, said, we shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated, but to know it for the first time. I paraphrase that, it's awful little. To know it for the first time. I think that T.S. Eliot might have been speaking about death, but I'm not. I think that we can come to know this place from which we originated, the place to which we return, all of us, by allowing this spark to become something bigger than just an occasional thing where you extend an act of kindness someplace, or you have it at the church or at the mosque or at the synagogue on a holy day or a holy observance, that it can become your way of being. There was a great teacher in India. His name was Vivekananda. Vivekananda came to the West as a young teacher, a very profound teacher. And he was asked the question, but how do you do this? How do you access this higher self? How do you make this your reality? And he said these words to his devotees, and I say them to you. He said, in the springtime, go out and observe the blossoms on the fruit trees. He said, the blossoms vanish of themselves as the fruit grows. And so too will the lower self, the false self, the ego, vanish as the divine grows within you. It's about allowing yourself to recognize you must have this spark because this is what you came from, and this is what you return to. And as this spark becomes a fragment and becomes a section and becomes larger and larger, you reach what I call in Wishes Fulfilled, the third chapter, the highest self. And what is the highest self? This is the one that's going to surprise you a bit. The highest self is the self that you haven't been trained to believe in. You've been trained to believe in your ordinary awareness. Your highest self is where you begin to recognize your connection to your source.
The ancient Zen proverb says, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." Let's examine the 4 key words in this Zen proverb. Student. Be a student. Stay open and willing to learn from everyone and anyone. Every single person you encounter in your lifetime has something to teach you. The ability to create real magic involves, first of all, being a student of life. Ready. This translates to being a willing student. As a student who is ready, you are eager for what it is that everyone and everything has to offer you. Teacher. The teacher is everywhere. The assistance you need will be provided by the universe as soon as you convert your readiness to willingness. Once you are willing, you will find teachers in every niche of your life. When you, the student, are ready and willing, the teacher will show up. You simply have to look around, open your new eyes, and silently ask yourself, who is my teacher? Appear. The teacher is making an appearance in everything and everyone you encounter. Today, as you are getting your life on purpose and gaining the ability to make miracles show up in your life, you will recognize the teacher. Once you feel yourself open enough to experience your own purpose for being here, and you have opened yourself up to receiving divine assistance by being a willing student, you will be ready to believe in your own capacity for becoming your very own miracle worker. When I talk about the world of real magic and miracles, I'm not referring to turning rocks into gold or raising the dead or commanding the seas to part. I'm discussing whatever you have considered beyond your ability to create for yourself because of limitations you believe you have. I want you to cultivate the foundation for creating real magic in any area that you would like. You must begin by examining your life focus and beliefs before attempting to implement any real magic strategies. I have identified 7 beliefs that can help you tap the power of real magic. Number 1, there's an invisible but knowable life force within you. Try cultivating an awareness of the invisible life force that suffuses all form in the universe, including your own physical body. This is the same universal intelligence that directs a rose to be a rose, the planets to align and move through space, and you to be you. It is in fact what allows you to perceive and experience your physical body and this physical world in which you find yourself temporarily housed. Number 2, your thoughts are something that you control and they originate with you. Thought is our way of processing and recording our human experience. Your thoughts create your experience of your health, wealth, and every detail of your world. As a step toward the awakened life of real magic, you must consider how your thoughts have contributed to a non-miraculous, limiting approach to life. Then you will know that you can also produce the opposite. Number 3, there are no limits. All of the things that you have become convinced are limits are products of the way in which you have learned to think. You probably were taught that logic and scientific verification dictate what is possible and what is not. But people who believe only what they can see or prove scientifically are limited by the current level of sophistication of our measuring devices. Be a person who accepts no limits in your mind. None. Number 4, your life has a purpose. The entire universe is an intelligent system. The invisible part of you, your thoughts and feelings, are also a part of the intelligent system that is you. What I'm asking of you here is to simply know you have a purpose, and then you'll be on your way to being able to create a miracle of your life in any and all areas of your choosing. Number 5, you overcome weaknesses by leaving them behind. You cannot outthink your weaknesses and limitations. What you can do is leave that stage of your life behind you and walk through the gate into a new way of being. You leave behind the belief that you cannot change, and you will leave behind the physical activity that has supported that belief. Picture it behind you, look back at it, and know that you no longer live that way. Know this to be a truth, and you'll soon see yourself creating real magic in your life. Number 6, examine what you believe to be impossible, and then change that belief. Take an inventory of what it is that you believe cannot happen in your life. Vow at the very minimum to rid yourself of these beliefs. If anyone ever on the planet has overcome a diagnosis of terminal, then know that such a capacity exists within all of us. This universal law that created miracles has not been repealed and never will be. Go to work on that thought right now, in this moment, which is the only physical reality you have. Number 7, go beyond logic. Try to let in the idea that there is another dimension that is very much a part of you, which has nothing to do with logic or scientific validation. You have never seen, touched, smelled, or physically felt a thought or a dream or a feeling, yet you know they exist. And so it is with a portion of your humanity that I call your soul. There are some who will never believe it unless they see it, and others who will see it because they believe it.
Change your thoughts based upon the wisdom of the Tao, and your life will change. There's many principles to live by in the Tao. First, remind yourself that there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. Bring happiness to all that you do. You accomplish much by trying less. It's so inconsistent, isn't it, with what we lived in the Western world. But the less you try, when I go out and swim in the ocean, and I do it almost every day, I try to do between 30 minutes and an hour every day, being out there in that ocean. And I just get out there, and if I try less, my arms just seem to know what to do, and the breathing just all works, and I can swim all day. As soon as I try, as soon as I struggle, as soon as I try, the minute that I move myself into trying, it's like if I were to take this little cap here and drop it right there and say, I'm going to try to pick this up. I'm going to try to pick this up. This is what Lao Tzu was speaking about. So all of this, I'm trying, I'm really trying. All of this is called, in reality, not picking it up. That's what that's called, not picking it up. But when I just get easy and do less. See yourself, the Tao says, in everyone you encounter. A great lesson. Every single being, especially the ones that we read about who we're told are our enemies. See yourself in them. Know that whoever they are, wherever they live, they want what we want. They want what I want. They want to be at peace. They don't want to be always struggling. They don't want to be sick. They just want to be loved, whoever they are. I know the skepticism of that. It's like, yes, but, all of the yes, buts. But if they got it too, see, Lao Tzu wasn't speaking to, well, some are going to get this and some probably won't. He was speaking to all of us. Trust in others, the Tao says, to know what's best for themselves. Trust in that. Trust in the pliability, the flexibility of your babies. God, those little babies, they're so great when they're like, 2 weeks old. You can take their foot, put it behind their neck, stick it around here like this, put it in their mouth. They're so flexible. I mean, you can do anything. You pick them up, you turn them upside down, you watch them when they're starting to learn to walk, and they run, crash, they go down into the walls and all of this, and you think, oh my God, this kid will never walk again. Up they go, and they don't. Trust in their flexibility. Live without attachment and be generous. Be strong by bending. By bending. We need to learn this in our lives. We need to learn this in the world. It's not so important to be right. It's so much more important when you have a choice to be right or to be kind. Always pick kind. Always pick kind. Practice radical humility. Live low. Live low like the ocean. Stay low. And all the streams will come to it. That's why it's so powerful. Because it doesn't lord anything over anyone. And rather than looking for miracles, see everything as miraculous. Everything in your life. There was a man who had a Tao experience, what I call a quantum moment. His name was John Newton. He lived back in the beginning of the 18th century. And he was crossing the ocean. He was a slave trader. He had a ship full of human cargo that he was going to trade into slavery in the most hideous practice that was so common at that time in our history. And in the middle of a storm, on his way over there with all of these people, he was 22 years old or 23 years old. And he thought he was going to die, and he thought it was like he must have hit a hurricane or something out there that was before satellites could warn people. And while he thought he was in that state of dying, he took out a pencil and a paper, and he wrote on the back of an envelope, he wrote, "I once was lost, and now I'm found." And it was grace that taught my heart to feel. It was grace that brought me home. And when the storm was over, he had a moment. He reconnected to his source. Anybody out there can reconnect to the source, to the Tao, and become a being of Tao. Remember, it's a return trip. And you can make that return trip while you're alive. Remember the parrot. He knows much more than we did. And he returned back to Africa, and he released the slaves, it is said. And for the next 55 years of his life, he shifted and became the most ardent spokesman as an abolitionist to abolish that hideous practice of slavery. That what he devoted his life to it. A former slave. It's like going from Saul to Paul, from being a person who crucifies and murders Christians to being the author of a big portion of the New Testament as St. Paul. In a moment, it's possible for any of us. I close this beautiful presentation on the Tao, Cecilia, with a poem that was written by a woman. Her name is Naomi Long Madgett. She's from Detroit, went to Wayne State University. She was named the Poet Laureate of Detroit, an acclaimed African-American poet. Listen to these words. It sums up all that I've been saying. I wouldn't coax the plant if I were you. Such watchful nurturing may do it harm. Let the soil rest from so much digging, and wait until it's dry before you water it. The leaf's inclined to find its own direction. Give it a chance to seek the sunlight for itself. Much growth is stunted by too careful prodding, too eager tenderness. The things we love, we have to learn to leave alone.